Hello, everyone. Welcome to HR Tech Talks. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day, good week so far. Looking forward to sharing with you, learning alongside you from our guest, as we always do. While you're getting settled in, would you please take a minute, put in the comments where you're listening in from. I was just telling our guest a few minutes ago, it's so much fun to see where everybody is, and it's all over the map, literally. So I'd love to see where you are, whether you're watching this live with us right this moment, or if you're watching this on replay a week, an hour, a day from now, doesn't matter. I'd love to see where you're listening in from. So today's conversation, I actually was out last week on vacation, so excited to dive back into the discussions here. And I miss this when I'm not able to have these conversations because, as I mentioned, I'm learning alongside you. This is also a little bit of research for me and the work we do at Lighthouse, where I'm trying to understand who's doing what, how they're solving problems, what the technologies are in the space, those kinds of things. So it'll be a fun discussion today. We're going to dive into something that all of us are familiar with on multiple levels, which is pay. And we're going to talk about how pay hasn't changed pretty much ever, right? You work and you wait till payday and you get paid, and then you work and you wait till payday and you get paid, and how there's opportunities now. The tools are smart enough. Companies are starting to think in a more innovative way, and there's ways to change that up and allow people to access that money sooner, before their payday. And so again, we'll get into all the details about how that works and some of the other fun stuff behind that. So enough setting up the topic today. I'm so excited for Jeannie Walden to join us. She's the Chief Marketing Officer. She is super sharp. We were having some fun a little bit ago chatting about swapping airport stories before we started recording. So I'll go ahead and bring Jeannie on from DailyPay and welcome her to the conversation. Hey there, Jeannie.
Hey, how's it going, Ben? Thanks for having me on the show.
You know what? I am looking forward to this very much. It's going to be a fun conversation because you and I were chatting about the issues, the problems, the gaps in how things work around pay. And I'm thinking back to like the first job that I had, the first paycheck I ever got. I'm like, wow, I've worked for a long time and suddenly this shows up, but it seemed like it took a long time to get here. So before we dive into some of those things, would you take a minute and give the audience a little more about who you are and what you do, please?
Sure. I'm Jeannie Walden. I'm the Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer for this awesome company called DailyPay that has a tremendously important and large mission. We are focused on rewriting the invisible rules of money that stop us from living our best life and creating the best future for our friends, families, and ourselves.
That is awesome. I hope we'll talk about some of those invisible rules in a little while, because I think that's a neat idea and one of those things that kind of underpins just how you're looking at the world, how you're trying to solve this bigger problem. So I kind of teased it a little bit at the beginning. Talk a little bit for the audience who's not a HR tech nerd like me and doesn't spend their days trying to understand what the technologies can do. Talk a little bit about the offerings that DailyPay has. Talk about on-demand pay as a kind of as a category and how it works, because I still run into people, and there might be some listening right now that aren't sure what that is, or it sounds interesting, but they don't know how the mechanics of it kind of works. And can you talk us through that a little bit and explain what that actually is?
Yeah, for sure. So let me start with on-demand pay. So some people call it earned wage access. Some people call it on-demand pay. Some people call it daily pay. It's up to you. They're pretty much all the same things. And it's a fairly simple concept. It's the opportunity for employees to access the money that they've earned. It's their money before the traditional company scheduled payday. So it's not a loan. There's no payback. If you've made $230 during the week and you quit your job, your company would owe you $230 for the hours that you've worked but not yet been paid for. All we are doing is giving people access to their money as they earn it in concert with the employer, and that's key. We work together with the employer to validate the hours that you worked and your rate of pay to make sure that you have access to the money that's already yours.
I love that idea because I'm a nerd in so many ways. When I'm not recording and writing and speaking, things like that, I love to listen to like financial talk shows, things like that. And personal finance is like a kind of a hobby or whatever you want to call it. And there are so many people, based on all the data, all the research that's been done in the last few years, there's so many people that are kind of like living on the edge, right? They're one paycheck away or one misstep away from everything falling apart. I remember the story a few years ago with this payroll company who had kind of had gone under, and there were millions of people affected by those kinds of things. And even when I was an HR leader, we had an employee, we had one time that had changed bank accounts and forgot to tell us. And like she was so worried she was going to nightmare scenario. She's going to lose her car, lose her house, everything else, because this was like 3 days to fix this problem. And it just reminds me, like, there are all these people, and some could be listening here right now, that are one step away from financial challenges. And so I love the idea of giving people access to this. Is that how you position it to companies? Is that how companies are actually selling it? This allows you to do that? Or are there other benefits in addition to kind of smoothing that out a little bit for people on the financial side?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just asked me like 14 different questions all in that one sentence. So let me try and break it down for you. So like, first and foremost, for employees, you're right. Most of us, whether we make $15 an hour, $50,000 an hour, whether we're making 6 figures or 7-figure salary, we are always living on the potential edge of financial disaster. And things just start to list on top of each other. It starts to be that domino effect. If one thing goes wrong with your finances, it really sets off a cadence that sometimes gets out of control really quickly. Even if you're the best planner, even if you have some money saved, I think the average American has less than $400 saved for an emergency. So if one thing goes wrong and you overdraft your bank account and they start charging you a $30 fee, then that causes something else to be non-sufficient. So then there's $25 for that, and then another $30. You can get into trouble really quickly. So it is really important that everybody stay on top of their finances. And at DailyPay, we've done a bunch of research, and we found that the average American, this is not like the average paycheck to paycheck person, this is the average working American, pays about $1,200 a year in a combination of late fees, overdraft fees, or high interest credit card fees, meaning over 24% in finance charges because of something that's happened to them or sometime when they needed to finance something. And that's crazy. Because imagine if you were making minimum wage, if you made $15 an hour, $1,200 a year is like getting like almost a 10% raise. I mean, it's like an 8% raise if you didn't have to pay those fees. So the key to like financial stability in the first place is to get yourself in a position where you never run into those late fees and non-sufficient funds fees. And one of those ways to do that is by being able to access the money that you've already earned as you need it, rather than getting yourself into a financial bind. And like, I don't know who decides when your credit card bills are due versus when your paycheck comes in, but I can tell you, this happens with my mom who's on Social Security all the time. If there's a holiday and her Social Security check is delayed by 2 days, she literally is late on her electric bill or her gas bill and gets those overdraft fees because the money that you get paid oftentimes doesn't match up with when the bills are due. So on-demand pay, if nothing else, puts everybody on an even playing field, which is amazing. And a lot of employers are really trying to look for benefits that provide something good for their employees, something of value. And this is something that an employee can control, and they can do it very discreetly. Because one of the things that we've seen with on-demand pay, and you mentioned it when you were working in HR directly, when people have a financial issue, it's personal, and sometimes it can be embarrassing. People don't want to go into their company and say, hey, I don't have enough money to cover my bills. Can I get access early? Or, hey, this just happened. Because, we found that a lot of people don't necessarily trust confidentiality in their company. And if they tell you, you could mention it to somebody, they mention it to somebody else, and people really just want those things to be personal matters. So the on-demand pay, also DailyPay, gives you that discreet way of managing your finances. For companies, there's a whole different set of benefits that it provides from a financial perspective around being able to hire faster, retain people longer, save tens to hundreds of millions of your bottom line every year that can be reinvested in a better workplace and more benefits for employees. So it is literally, DailyPay is a win-win for everybody.
I think win, win, win. I'm losing track of the number of wins there.
There's lots of wins. There's lots of wins. One win for every question you ask me.
Well, one of the things, so I'm in addition to all this other stuff, not going to surprise you, I'm a kind of an economics nut. And one of the things you're talking about talking about the impacts of late fees and everything else, especially on those that are less affluent, is like, we would never, put a tax in place that was regressive, that impacted people who are at the bottom rung of the income ladder more than people who are at the top rung. And yet that's what those things are, because they're more likely to be impacted by those. Someone who's on minimum wage and who's going to be struggling to try to make those ends meet that one time where they have that unexpected expense, it's going to hit them more often and more frequently and more heavily with more impact than it's going to hit someone else. And strangely, and yet, we would never put a law in place that supported that. The taxes don't support that. And yet that's how those fees and other things are kind of set up to hit them the hardest. And so that's one of the things you said earlier, kind of rewriting the unwritten rules. You were telling me that you had this vision as a company that this is more than just helping people with their pay. It's bigger than that, right? Talk about that big vision, if you don't mind, because I think it's a great picture to paint and help us understand how this goes beyond just, okay, Ben can get his money before Friday because his kid had cut her foot open on the back porch like she did last year, right? We have some emergency we got to take care of. Talk about the next step beyond that, because it's easy to get caught. Like, that has real value. I don't want to diminish that, but I think there's this really powerful vision there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, our belief at DailyPay is so much bigger than just on-demand pay. We think that there's all these rules around money, and they just, over time, somebody makes a rule. Somebody decided after World War II to institute a company scheduled payday so that you could institute payroll taxes so that we could get the economy back in shape after the war. That was awesome. That was like 70 years ago. And like I said to you off camera, it scares me to say that was 70 years ago because it makes me feel so old. But, 70 years ago, we put this rule into place and nobody questions these rules around money. Like, who does that? So we're on this mission to really question the way that money moves and rewrite these invisible rules to rebuild like a new financial system that works for everybody. And you said it, we need to focus on everybody at every income level and what is right and what should be done to help people to really be able to live their best life. And so it starts with pay. But it doesn't start with giving you access to your pay when you need it. Is literally just like the first step in how you rewrite and create a new financial system. We think about, the money that you earn before your company scheduled payday as the pay balance. And with your daily pay balance, it's just like you have money in a checking account, that's your checking account balance, money in a savings account, that's your savings account balance. Right now, when you need money out of your checking or savings account, you go to an ATM. If you go to your bank's ATM, you probably don't have a fee. If you go to an ATM outside of your bank account, you may have to pay an ATM processing fee. But it's your money and you have access to it and control over it when you need it, how you need it. And nobody gives you any regulations around that. Why not the same with pay? But then even more so, if you're able to take your pay balance and you're able to use your pay balance at a merchant to buy diapers that are much needed for your baby before your next company scheduled payday, we are enabling you to put money into the economy faster. If we can enable you to go visit your local store merchant 4 days, 10 days earlier than you normally would to take care of a need you already have, that's not just helping your baby, that's also helping you, and it's helping your community store, and it's helping your local community, and it's helping the overall economy, because now money is being able to be put into the economy in an on-demand basis and not necessarily around these rules. It was so sad during COVID. At the beginning of COVID, when we were all really afraid, nobody knew what was going on, you would see all these people in these lines around supermarkets on the 15th, the 31st, for people that were trying to get things that they desperately needed, like toilet paper or safety supplies or diapers for their kids, because the company didn't give them access to the money that they'd already earned before that. So we actually waived any fees to access DailyPay for the first 3 months during the pandemic so that you could get those things no matter who you were and no matter how much money you'd made when you needed them, so that if you had a health risk, you didn't have to stand in line, and potentially be at risk for getting COVID while you were just trying to take care of your family. And it's those types of rules and that vision that we have for rebuilding the way the financial system works that really is going to make a difference on not just employees, not just employers, but the entire economy.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's a really powerful picture to paint. And one of the things you talked about earlier that I skipped over because I got excited about the nerdy stuff as usual, were some of the business kind of impacts and benefits. Right now, I can drive in 10 minutes in any direction and see like 5 help wanted signs in the windows. Like everybody's trying to find talent right now. And as I'm thinking about when you look at what they're actually offering, it's, hey, here's your hours, here's your compensation. We may have a benefit or not, but that's it. And I see this as kind of an edge for those employers that are trying to stand out from everybody else, from the sea of like, we all just want to trade hours for dollars. This allows those employers to say, hey, we see you, we appreciate you, and we want to give you something else that everybody else isn't. And it helps them to kind of stand out in a competitive market. Is that what you're seeing or hearing? I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, 1,000%. So even before this labor shortage happened, the industries and companies that would most often like come to us and say, I really need to offer your service, were industries like home healthcare, quick service restaurants, very similar to what we're seeing now, who are in a tight labor market. So when you want to get a job at a fast food restaurant and you're standing at literally any corner in the United States, what do you see when you turn around? If you're near McDonald's, chances are there's a Wendy's and a Burger King and a Taco Bell, and depending on where you are, maybe a Captain D's or there's just like Popeyes. There's so many different choices. And generally, they all pretty much pay the same wage. So when you can work at any fast food restaurant, what's going to be the differentiator to come work at McDonald's versus Burger King versus Taco Bell? It very well could be getting access to your pay, because we all know no matter who you are, no matter how much money you make, when you start that first job, you typically get in the middle of the pay cycle. So it means you have to wait 3 weeks before you first get your first paycheck. And especially if you're skipping a job or you're leaving another job, you've got this gap where there's like no money coming in. Yes, your paycheck 3 weeks from now will be a little bit bigger than normal, but who can wait that long? Like really? So if you saw a sign that said work today, get paid tomorrow, chances are your preference is going to go to that company. So we see now with this labor shortage, companies that offer daily pay as an advertised benefit, whether you're Arby's or Target or Dollar Tree, Kroger, Tractor Supply, McDonald's, it doesn't matter. Companies that are offering this benefit will actually see that they can hire people about 52% faster, because people see the sign and they're like, I get it. This is what I want. I want to get paid today. So they apply and then they work harder. So the first benefit is, in a tight labor market, you get people 52% faster than if you're advertising any other benefits. But secondly, once you get them in, who wants to give that up? So say you're making $15 somewhere and another company is going to offer you $16. Sounds good to get an extra dollar more, but then you got to go into that 3-week cycle again. You're most likely going to stay where you are longer. And we did a study with a company called the Mercator Group that showed we increased tenure. Offering daily pay in a company increases tenure by 72%. That means if your employee stays 72% longer, guess what? That is less recruiting that you have to do. And everybody knows it could be anywhere between $4,000 just to start placing ads for new employees to get them onboarded. And it costs about 1.4 times somebody's salary to get a new person into that spot. That equates to millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, depending on how big your company is, straight to the bottom line when people stay longer. And they report they're happier. We just did this study with a group that's not out yet, so I can't share the name of it, but the results show that employees are so happy because they see daily pay as a payday loan killer, right? Now they no longer have to use payday loans because they've got this. And they see it as an employee benefit. So they're very happy with the employer that they work for. So they're all amazing statistics. You also see time clock compliance go up to 100% on day 2. Kronos gave us that little stat. When someone says, hey, you'll get paid for the hours that you clocked in and out for, everyone's clocking in and out. So it's pretty awesome.
One of the things you said there, it reminded me of this experiment I did years ago, and you'll appreciate it because it was a perfect example of what you're saying. My wife was the teacher, and we did this experiment where if you read all of your required books as one of her students, then at the end of the semester, we would bring you a special treat, a special lunch. And a certain number of kids would do it, a handful. And then the next semester we said, okay, as you're doing it, we're going to bring it that week. And so everybody got to see it happening that week. And those kids 3-4 times as many actually ended up getting those rewards because they were so engaged, so excited. And that's what you're saying there with when someone sees like, I'm working my tail off because I'm going to have access to this money so I can actually do the things I need to do. I can live my life the way I need to live it on my terms and not on this preset schedule. I think that's a great example of that kind of playing out. And I don't know where that came from, that it's like a natural law, but I'm totally with you on you always start in between that, like that gap. You're like, hey, it'll be 3 or 4 weeks until you get paid. Or like we decided to change pay periods and now it's gonna be 6 weeks till you get paid. Just hang tight. Arrears is a great thing to be. I don't know how that's true, but it always is true every time I've ever changed a job in my past. But that example popped in my head though, because I tell that story because it reminds me, like, people when they see the finish line isn't way out there, some arbitrary place. It's right here in front of me. I know the benefit I can get from that. They're more willing to take that action. They're more willing to put in that effort when they can see the results, the fruits of that labor more quickly.
Exactly. Well, and it's funny because you talk about something that's so important, and it's transparency, right? So if you are a salaried person that makes, X $1,000s a year, you pretty much can do the math backwards and say, okay, I make this much a week. I make this much a day. You can figure out what your money situation is. If you're in an hourly job, that even like nurses get paid hourly, and you're in a company that offers shift differentials, overtime, holiday pay, it is very challenging to know how much money you're going to make every week. And I say this, like, I've been in jobs like that. My oldest daughter works at a gym, and she never knows. I mean, she generally knows the range of what she's going to get paid, but she doesn't know specifically. So one of the great things about DailyPay is you can log into the app at any time and you can see your pay balance. You might not need to take money out because now for the first time ever, you can see, oh, I've made $227.13. It's 5 days until payday. And then you can step back and say, I'm going to work 3 more days. Generally, I'm going to make this much more. Is that enough money for me to cover my bills? Is that enough money for me to put some away so I can save for my family's vacation coming up? And if it is, awesome. And if it's not, you can pick up an extra shift. It's not too late. But you can also make decisions around, can you afford to call off? And so we've also seen companies report that DailyPay, people that use DailyPay, their employees are 3 times more productive. And it's not because there's any kind of magic around it. It's just the transparency of, now I can see what I made. Now I know what I can afford to spend, or now I can see what I need to do. And do I need to pick up that shift? Or can I afford to take Friday off and go take my kids, to the zoo like I've been promising I would do all summer, and we just haven't gotten around to it. And that by itself is super powerful. Like this concept of your pay balance and seeing how much money you actually have, so important. And besides the people that are living paycheck to paycheck, we see so many people taking advantage of that proactively. So they can see, oh, I've made $743. I only need $500 this week for my bills. I'm going to take 100 of the extra 200. And besides, so with the pay balance feature, with the ability to take your money out early, but we also have the ability for you to save before your paycheck. So you can take $100 out before your payday, and you can put it into a savings account of your choice, or you could invest it. Excuse me. And that's super powerful.
I was gonna say, pay yourself first. That's what all the financial experts say. But then when it actually comes in, you're like, but to be able to see those things, have that clarity, that transparency before it actually shows up in your account, that's totally. You make the decision right then, right? Just like when you're trying to get someone to save in their retirement savings account, you don't say, hey, once it goes in your account, then write a check back to us. We know that would never work. No, let's get that out at payroll, at payday time. Let's take that out. This is the same principle. Let's not wait until it's already made. Let's make it very simple for you to do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm
and we
see.
Oh my God, there's so many applications. So like we in the healthcare space, we see people taking money out early to speed up their accreditation to get them to the next salary level or the next pay level. There was this cute employee sent us a video. he was training to be the world's next MMA fighter, and he had a job that had nothing to do with MMA fighting, but he would work extra hours to build his pay balance to what it needed to be so that he could speed up his training. And he was so cute. He invited us to come and see, his next world winning MMA championship fight when he got to that point. So we all wish him luck. But there's people take their money out early to pay down high interest credit card payments or high balance credit cards to boost their credit score if they're planning on buying a house in the future. Like, there's so many different ways that you can use your money when you know you have access to it and when you can see how much there is. Like, pay is literally just the beginning of this whole new financial system built around this concept of freedom.
Well, that story you tell there is a great example of one of the things I always come back to. Again, I spent time in the trenches as an HR leader. And so the thing I always come back to is it's very easy for us to see the tax rates, or we see here's the process, or we see here's the initiative, or here's the structure. But at the end of the day, this is a person's life, their family, their dreams, their hopes. All those things are wrapped into this, and it enables or doesn't enable those things. And giving them access, giving them that freedom, giving that transparency, to use some of the words that you pulled out in this conversation, those things really help to enable whatever vision they have for their life, instead of putting a limit on that or putting constraints around that. It really allows them to manage it on their own terms, I think you said earlier, which I think is a great way to put it. So if someone's listening into this and they're curious about DailyPay, they're curious about what you and the team are up to, number one, if you're listening to this on LinkedIn, you can click on the show notes of the episode right there on the top right, and you can click right over to Jeannie's LinkedIn profile and say hello to her, tell you saw her on the show. You can click over and follow DailyPay on LinkedIn to see what they're posting, what their updates are, things like that. But there's another way for them to connect. What would you recommend?
Gosh, come to the website, check it out. We have an incredible amount of educational information. We got blogs, we have reports, we have webinars that are coming up. Definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect with you or connect you with one on the team for sure.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, I've enjoyed this so much, and my head's kind of spinning thinking about the different ideas and applications and ways this is solving real problems for real people and for their employers as well, for companies that are taking advantage of these kind of tools. So I really appreciate you for hanging out with us or spending some time with us and educating us a little bit on DailyPay, the company, and the concept and how it all works.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks so much for having me on the show. I have been a huge fan of yours and follow every single talk each Monday. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you. To everybody else, I hope you enjoyed the discussion today with Jeannie. As you can tell, she's super passionate. She's got a lot of great insights to share. And I love this idea of helping people to get around some of these financial hurdles that have been holding them back, hold their families back, limiting. As she mentioned a story, an example, someone that reached out to them personally. I've seen some of the videos, and if you have not seen those, go check out, again, their website, look around. They have some great videos and examples of people that are using this, and they love it and appreciate it so much as individuals, not just as companies, but as individuals, that they're kind of sending them their own thank yous and their own appreciation and showering that back, because it's helped to enable them to live their life on their own terms, as she mentioned. So thank you all for hanging out with us on HR Tech Talks today. I appreciate each one of you for spending some time with us, for learning alongside me about what's happening out in the space and what other innovations happening. And I look forward to catching you again next week on a new episode. Stay safe, be well, and do some good work. I'll see you then. Thanks.